Thanks, guys. Great show. Morning, everybody. Fox News alert awaiting remarks by Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, at the State Department at a meeting of the global coalition to defeat ISIS. We're watching this for headlines, and we're bringing those headlines inside of America's Newsroom today. So stand by for that. Meanwhile, there was a ton of reaction pouring in for the State of the Union address last night. President calling on Congress to choose greatness over gridlock. 82 minutes, 98 applause interruptions, and a lot of headlines that we'll go through for the next 3 hours. Good morning from New York. I'm Bill Hemmer. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Long night, a late night that it was. I'm Sandra Smith. Good morning, everyone. The president doubling down on his push for a border wall with a deadline now just days away to keep the government open. He also touched on his second summit with Kim Jong-un, a booming economy, and more. Watch.
Members of Congress, the state of our union is strong. Since the election, we have launched an unprecedented economic boom. Most of the people in this room voted for a wall, but the proper wall never got built. I will get it built. Wealthy politicians and donors push for open borders while living their lives behind walls and gates and guards. Meanwhile, working-class Americans are left to pay the price for mass illegal immigration. Tonight, we renew our resolve that America will never be a socialist country. We are born free, and we will stay free.
Fox team coverage, big Wednesday morning here in America's Newsroom. Jonathan Swan of Axios with reaction to the address. Griff Jenkins with the migrant caravans in Mexico. But we begin with Kevin Corke at the White House. Kevin, what's the news on North Korea?
Well, I can just tell you this. There were so many interesting parts of that address last night. But as you point out, North Korea, a very, very big headline. The president announcing that he and Kim Jong-un will meet once again with the safety and security, not just of our partners in the region, Sandra, clearly the entire world hanging in the balance, making sure that we are safe against what could be an absolute catastrophe. The president announcing that second summit coming up February 27th and 28th. He said the very fact that we're in talks with Pyongyang is making the country and the world safer.
If I had not been elected president of the United States, we would right now, in my opinion, be in a major war with North Korea. Much work remains to be done, but my relationship with Kim Jong-un is a good one. Chairman Kim and I will meet again on February 27th and 28th in Vietnam.
Well, this morning, as you can imagine, there's plenty of analysis of that announcement, more granular detail, in fact, Sandra, about what deliverables the president should probably focus on when once again the two leaders meet.
What the president has to do at the second summit is has to incentivize or make clear to Kim that he's got to move towards negotiations or he's not going to get another summit. My biggest concern is that he will cut a deal with Kim on ICBMs, right? Let's get rid of the ICBMs that threaten the United States, and let's not worry so much about the nuclear weapons that threaten the rest of the region. That's my biggest concern.
By the way, the choice of Vietnam, Sandra, is an important one because effectively what the U.S. is trying to telegraph to Pyongyang is you can have your independence, you can have your country be the way it has been with respect to its own leadership, its own decisions, and yet open up to the world and make the world safer in the process, again, coming up February 27 and 28 in Vietnam.
And Kevin, another strong applause line last night coming in when the president urged peace and legislation, not war and investigation. We all remember that moment. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the quintessential 2019 Washington line, right? This idea that we can't do the bidding of the American people if we're constantly infighting here in Washington. And that has been the real challenge, not just for this president, but obviously for presidents before this particular president. He also made note of that in context, Sandra, while trying to protect the American people along the border. Again, hopefully without once again shutting down the government over politics.
Tonight I am asking you to defend our very dangerous southern border out of love and devotion to our fellow citizens and to our country. No issue better illustrates the divide between America's working class and America's political class than illegal immigration. If there is going to be peace and legislation, there cannot be war and investigation. It just doesn't work that way.
As you can imagine, Democrats are skeptical on the Hill. A great many of them say they're not willing to work with the president on this as long as there is going to be a border wall. A busy day here at the White House as well. We expect to have a couple of opportunities to see the president, Sandra. Of course, we'll pass that along to you this afternoon. But for now, back to you.
Good stuff. Kevin Corke, thank you.
So much to go through. Meanwhile, the Democrats enlisting rising star Stacey Abrams to deliver the response last night.
Under the current administration, far too many hard-working Americans are falling behind. The Republican tax bill rigged the system against working people. We can do so much more, but none of these ambitions are possible without the bedrock guarantee of our right to vote. Let's be clear. Voter suppression is real.
Abrams narrowly lost an election for governor in Georgia back in Atlanta to the Republican Brian Kemp in Georgia, the first African-American woman to give the rebuttal for the State of the Union there on behalf of Democrats. What's the White House saying this morning? Here's Jonathan Swan, national reporter for Axios. Jonathan, how you doing? Good to see you again and welcome back here.
Thanks,
what are you hearing from the White House last night or today about the biggest takeaway from this speech?
Well, Democrats reacted in some parts exactly as they hoped, the White House hoped they would. They crafted this speech to create these moments of choice. And so you had three, really. You had one where Trump spoke in very forceful language about late-term abortion. You had one where he talked about getting coyotes and drug dealers and criminals, illegal immigrants out of America. And the other one escapes my mind, but those two in particular, the Democrats sat on their seats emotionless while he made these very forceful pitches.
I can recall.
I'm sorry, the other one is socialism. The other one is socialism. Okay. I don't know why I forgot that.
It's all right. Late night.
Yeah. So these are moments. You can now see a roadmap for how the president wins in 2020. It's these issues that actually a lot of Americans agree with him on. You do see a rise in popularity of socialism, but it's still an issue that, you know, a lot of voters are uncomfortable with. And you saw how Trump used those issues in that speech last night, and the reaction was quite telling.
Here's another moment from last night. This is what the White House said we would hear throughout the morning into the afternoon and evening, and here was the delivery on that.
We must choose between greatness or gridlock, results or resistance, vision or vengeance, incredible progress or pointless destruction. Tonight, I ask you to choose greatness.
When you think about that comment and think about the three things you just outlined, was there a singular message the White House was trying to drive home?
What they were trying to do is to present the president as reasonable, as somebody who supports 70-30 issues, as some advisors describe them, issues that most people should be able to agree on. Of course, some of the issues are not 70-30 issues. We're in a very, very divided country, but that's certainly the way that they constructed that speech. And it was designed to sort of test Democrats to see whether they would stand in applause on these key moments.
A very interesting analysis. Another story that kind of escaped the attention last night, Elizabeth Warren, apparently a form from 1986 and an application for Texas State Bar. She listed, apparently in her own handwriting, I don't think she's disputed this, Jonathan, that she was American Indian. How is that reverberating today?
So, well, it's important because it's the first time we've seen her in her own handwriting claim Native American identity. In other circumstances, it hasn't been in her writing. They haven't disputed that it's authentic. This whole episode, which has, she's apologized for and has dragged on with the DNA test, has encouraged the Trump campaign officials that I've spoken to, because they just see it as the fact that she would think that it would be politically useful to do this DNA test and announce the results as an encouraging sign of her political skills heading into 2020.
So, because much of the reporting so far is that she had not listed herself as a minority, and this would counter all of that. We'll see where it goes. Jonathan, great to have you back, okay? Jonathan Swan from Axios, you bet. They're in Washington, D.C. Thank you. Sandra.
Now to Mexico, where some 2,000 migrants are arriving at our southern border as thousands more troops make their way there as well. Griff Jenkins is live on the scene in Mexico. Griff.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, the authorities certainly have things under control here. I'll just let you have a look around. This is a shift change between the military police down there, the federal police. Still that show of force. You can look inside the gates. They just took a family in on the other side. I'm not sure if you can tell. This is a few of the migrants coming just a day late. But, you know, the officials were out here, the governor of this Mexican state of Coahuila, as well as the mayor, and they're saying no more caravans, please. They're saying they actually won't accept another caravan, even though we know there's a few there. And they're very cognizant of the larger issue at play. Here is the mayor of Piedras Negras talking about what is the solution. Listen.
It would make it better if the Democrats, Republicans, the U.S. government, the Mexican government, the Honduran government, everybody work together to put in the table something that will resolve this.
So the headline in the local paper really is no mas caravanas. We'll see what happens if another one arrives here in the coming days, guys.
Thank you for your continued coverage there, Griff Jenkins in Mexico.
That story is ongoing. President Trump doubling down in his push to withdraw from parts of the world. Watch here.
We have spent more than $7 trillion in fighting wars in the Middle East. Great nations do not fight endless wars.
So the war in Afghanistan, nearly 2 decades old. What the president is calling for there and in Syria. Senator John Barrasso will react to all of that in a moment live. Plus, there is this.
We also have more women serving in Congress than at any time before.
Well, that was certainly a big moment from last night. President Trump getting a standing ovation from House Democratic women, many of them dressed in white to show solidarity. We'll have much more on this in just a moment.
So there is continued uncertainty in Virginia as the governor, Ralph Northam, does not step down over this controversy.